So this is going to be another movie review. This one's called The Immortal Story, 1968. I hated this flick. I'm giving it 1 out of 5 stars. This is going to be another Orson Welles flick. It's his shortest one. The Immortal Story, French, Una Historia Immortale, is a 1968 French film directed by Orson Welles and starring Jeanne Moreau, who gets naked off camera. She's even covering up her nipples in this one. If you can believe that, she's covering up with her hands. The film was originally broadcast on French television and it was later released in theaters. It was based on a short story by the Danish writer Karen Blixen, more widely known by her pen name Isaac Dennison. With a running time of 60 minutes, it's the shortest feature film directed by Welles. The Amazon Prime version was actually 58, 59 minutes, somewhere around there. Running time 48 minutes French version and 60 minutes English version. Release May 24th, 1968. In 19th century Macau, Mr. Clay, Orson Welles, is a wealthy merchant at the end of his life. His only constant companion is his bookkeeper, a Polish Jewish immigrant named Levinsky, played by Roger Coggio. One evening, while reading to Clay before bed, Levinsky recites a prophecy by the prophet Isaiah. Clay declares his hatred of prophecies. Clay begins to tell a story he once heard on a ship of a rich old man who offers the sailor 5 guineas to impregnate his wife. However, Levinsky completes the story, having heard it himself from multiple other seamen. Clay becomes obsessed in making that legendary tale come true, and Levinsky is dispatched to find a sailor and a young woman who will play the part of Clay's wife. Levinsky approaches Virginie, played by Jeanne Moreau, the daughter of Clay's one-time business partner who committed suicide. Clay's ruthless dealings drove Virginie's father to bankruptcy and suicide, and she is eager to participate in this action to get her revenge. The destitute sailor, a young Dane named Paul, played by Norman Eshley, recently rescued from a desert island, is discovered on the street and he is recruited. Having heard the story himself as well, Paul at first refuses to participate, but Paul agrees when Clay reminds him that he needs the money. Money is flesh. Money is flesh in your hand. Virginie and Paul find an emotional bond in their brief union, but they go their separate ways. Virginie is exercised of her bitterness against Clay, while Paul is seen walking away from the villa. Before doing so, Paul asks Clay to give Virginie a shell he found on his desert island that will play a song if she holds it to her ear. Levinsky goes to inform Clay about what took place, but he discovers the old merchant has died. And that's pretty much the end of the Immortal story. This is kind of an artsy film, intentionally cutting out all the nudity of Jeanne Moreau, who looks like she's about 50 in this. Orson Welles was a self-professed admirer of the writing of Karen Blixen. At one point, he announced plans to create a series of films based on her writing. The Immortal story is a short story first published in Blixen's 1958 short essay collection, Anecdotes of Destiny. Originally, the Immortal story was meant to be half of a two-part anthology film, with the second half based on the Blixen story, The Deluge of Norderney. However, the second film was canceled when Welles raised concerns about the professionalism of his crew in Budapest, Hungary, where production was to have taken place. Welles received financing from Office de Radio Télévision Française to create the Immortal story for premiere presentation on French television, to be followed by theatrical release in France and other countries. As part of the financing, Welles was contractually obligated to shoot the film in color. Welles was not a fan of color cinematography, and in one interview he stated, "Color enhances the set, the scenery, the costumes, but mysteriously enough, it only detracts from the actors. Today is impossible to name one outstanding performance by an actor in a color film." Vertigo would be one film. Much of the film was shot in Welles' home in Chinchón, a small location outside of Madrid, Spain. The location for the port of Macau was the main square of Chinchón, and other exterior scenes depicting the Portuguese-built city in China were also shot in the nearby towns of Pedraza, Brahiga, and Valdemoro. Welles used Chinese restaurant waiters from Madrid as extras to recreate the setting for Macau. The Immortal story was entered into the 18th Berlin International Film Festival in June 1968. The film had a U.S. premiere at the 1968 New York Film Festival. In February 1968, it had a U.S. theatrical release on a double feature bill with Louis Buñuel's Simon of the Desert. On August 30th, 2016, the Immortal story was released on DVD and Blu-ray in the US by the Criterion Collection. And that was the version that I just saw on Amazon Prime. Nobody in the chat room again today. The Immortal story, original title, Una Historia Immortally, TV, pardon my French, TV movie, 1968, not rated, 58 minutes. So Wikipedia is saying 60 minutes, and IMDb is saying 58 minutes, and Amazon Prime is saying 58 minutes. We've got consensus. It is 58 minutes. This gets a whopping 7 out of 10 on IMDb, 3,800 ratings. Everybody loves Orson Welles. Orson Welles can do no wrong. This is just a story about a depressed, lonely Ebenezer Scrooge type character who has nobody to but that's the best way I can describe it. In Macau, a wealthy merchant named Charles Clay hires two people to recreate a story of a sailor who is paid to impregnate a man's wife. It's kind of ironic that the his former business partner's daughter who's gone astray. She ends up playing the wife in the. None of it makes any sense. And Jean Moreau doesn't get naked. Fernando Rey is in this. How could I forget him? Fernando Rey has a short cameo of about 2 minutes, maybe. Okay. Here's a review from Chaos Rampant on IMDb. The title of the review is "You Move at My Bidding." This looks like a more this is a more flattering review. Chaos Rampant, dated December 26, 2010. Orson Welles directs, based on a novel by Isaac Dennison, a story about an Ebenezer Scrooge type, the miserly rich old man who doesn't believe in stories and prophecies, who hears a story about a sailor picked up by an old man in a harbor to sleep with a beautiful woman, and he decides to make the story happen in real life so that at least one sailor can tell it from beginning to end like it happened. This is like an essay on fiction or like a charcoal sketch, except the charcoal in Wells' hand leaves smudges, and we get those smudges as handprints on the camera because the Immortal story seems to talk about the anxieties of the storyteller and a magician, but also of an old aging man and an exile. In parts of the static Dar style, he channels Bergman, old Dreyer Beckett, his own work. There's a beautiful piano accompaniment, and Jean Moreau in a Pierre Cardin attires looks ravished and ravishing at the same time. In the end, the story is reenacted for the old man's benefit and to his satisfaction, but the sailor leaving the mansion refuses to tell it to anyone because who would believe him anyway? Perhaps Wells is telling us some things, the important ones in life, we tell as stories because no one would believe us otherwise, so that in the world of imagination they can become as real and so communicate their truth, and inversely, that perhaps all stories in the world happen somewhere to someone in some form, and we only hear their echo through the centuries, or even that we're all as characters in a story moving at the bidding of a higher authority that pulls the strings, but it's our right and choice to tell our story or not. Food for thought. Okay. Too much for me. More like this confidential report, Othello, chimes at midnight, and F for fake. I think I have Othello on my list somewhere here. See if I can pull it up. Come on, movies list. Let's go. Othello. Othello is number 9 on my list. What a coincidence. F for fake is number 21 on my list. Cool. So we've got more Orson Welles coming down the pike. Should be able to get to Othello next week. Because we've got the when is President's Day? It's February 16th, President's Day. So that's a week from Monday, right? Yeah. So I should be able to get to Othello next weekend. That's going to be a 4-day weekend. And I'll have my son on President's Day. So I should be able to whip through these. Going down my list, I'm going to try to get through 3 more. I'll do another one shortly. And then 2 more full-length movies or normal-length movies. So that should be fun. Looking forward to it. The Portuguese colony of Macau in the 19th century. Mr. Clay is a very rich merchant and the subject of town gossip. He has spent many years in China and is now quite old. He likes his clerk Levinsky to read the company's accounts to him at night for relaxation. Tonight, Mr. Clay recounts a true story he heard years before a rich man who had paid a sailor 5 guineas to father a child with his beautiful young wife. Levinsky says that's a popular old sailor's legend and not true. Mr. Clay has no heir for his fortune and no wife either. He resolves to make the story true. Levinsky approaches Virginie, another clerk's mistress, and Levinsky strikes a bargain for 300 guineas now to find the sailor. That's the storyline from David Woodfield. Genre drama, which is our least favorite genre here besides kids cartoon and romantic comedy. A Certificate, it's not rated, but I can assure you there's no nudity in this. It's all covered up. The sex scene is conveniently covered up by camera angles and Jean Moreau's hands. The interior scenes of this movie were filmed at the home of Orson Welles outside Madrid, Spain. Some of the Chinese signs are upside down or backwards. Paul the sailor, old gentleman, will you remember to do something for me? She's got so many fine things. She would not care to have a lot of shells lying about, but this one is rare, I think. Perhaps there's not another one like it in all the world. It's as smooth and silky as her knee. And when you hold it to your ear, there's a sound to it, a song. The French language version runs 51 minutes. I think Wikipedia said 40 minutes. Featured an arena, the Orson Welles story, Part 1, 1982. Soundtracks, Gymnopédie, number 1, piano pieces, written by Eric Satie, performed by Aldo Ciscolini, Aldo Ciscolini with permission of Pathe Marconi. Release date September 18th, 1968 in the US. Country of origin France. Language English, also known as the Guinea piece. Filming locations Aravaca, Madrid, Spain. Production companies Office de Rediffusion, Television Francais, ORTF, Albina Productions SARL, runtime 58 minutes. This is in color, much to the chagrin of Orson Welles. Sound mix is mono. The aspect ratio is 1.66 to 1. Going down my list, number 1 is now Missionary Spotlight, Anna's Story, which I'll dispatch very soon. That one is 2019. Then we've got number 2, Rituals, 1977, followed by number 3, Waterfront, 1944. So those are the next 3 coming down the pike. And we'll try to whip through these as quickly as possible. Thanks for hanging out. Nobody's in the chat room. I guess we'll save that for Monday. And try to get 3 more reviews in later today. Laters.